Okay, I'm afraid I'm going to do it to you again. Walk you through a labyrinthine regulatory thing that you want to ignore, but probably shouldn't because it may eventually affect you in this insane era of insatiable data center energy demand, mobile capital, and finite energy supplies. Last week, PJM stakeholders, including the electric distribution companies and the data center coalition, okayed a reliability backstop procurement plan to address growing data center demand and an anticipated generation supply shortfall in 2 years. This approach, if approved by the PJM board and then subsequently by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, would see utilities and other load-serving entities, and perhaps the data centers themselves, requesting PJM to access a specific quantity of capacity in a one-time auction. The load-serving entities would then bill the large loads for that capacity, with average prices capped at $555 per megawatt day. This approach would kick in during the 2028-29 delivery year, with contracts from 2 to 15 years in duration. PJM had created a so-called critical issue fast path stakeholder group to consider options for this one-time capacity procurement process in parallel with the regular capacity auctions which have been taking place. The 2028-9 one just ended with results to be out shortly. And this data center capacity issue has been at the core of these considerations. The proposed reliability backstop procurement, also referred to as RBP package, includes a bilateral auction that allows large loads and suppliers to directly contract for capacity with specific negotiated terms and conditions to be decided among the parties. It also ensures that any related costs, quote, are assigned to the cost-causing parties, unquote, so that other ratepayers don't bear the prices. Since the load-serving entities, generally the utilities, are legal and contractually obligated to supply these loads, they're responsible for finalizing procurement targets and bearing related financial and credit obligations. To develop the procurement target quantities, a large load registry will be established. Either the loads themselves or associated energy providers will then report the identity and megawatts associated with each large load. The pricing is where it gets weird, that $555 cap. It's a volume-weighted cap, and it uses the estimated cost of new entry, the so-called CONE, for the 2028-29 delivery year. In other words, what would it cost to bring new supply, typically gas-fired simple or combined cycle plants, in about 2 years? Right now, using that CONE formula, this is capped at $555 per megawatt day. Ding, ding, ding. This number, note, is considerably higher than the administrative cap price of $325 per megawatt day that was put in place for the past 2 base residual auctions and the ones taking place now and the next one in the future. That $555 per megawatt day is based on this formula that PJM estimates for new supply. And this is again where it gets strange. PJM would commit resources by ranking the offers by volume-weighted price in dollars per megawatt day, averaged across the contract terms based on the resources in service dates. It would then accept each forthcoming offer sequentially until the procurement capacity target is met or that $555 per megawatt day price cap is exceeded. In the example PJM uses, it cites a total volumetric target of 1,000 megawatt, and then for simplicity, assumes the same duration for each project. So offer 1 comes in for 250 megawatts at $475, offer 2, 250 megawatts at $500 per megawatt day, offer 3, 250 megawatts at $525 per megawatt day, and offer 4, 250 megawatts at $600 per megawatt day. That last offer would lead to a weighted average of $525, so all resources would clear and be accepted. But for an example I used, what if the last offer were to come in at $725? Well, then the weighted cap would come in at over $556 per megawatt day, exceeding the cap. The auction would end, and that final $725 offer would be excluded. The reason for this price cap is to keep developers from obtaining immense leverage and pushing prices even potentially higher in this one-time auction. As such, the cap is meant to enforce some competitive discipline so generators don't get too greedy. That matters in a world in which estimates of potential revenue from a gigawatt of data center compute capability are as high as $15 billion. At the same time, though, as I've argued before, caps may function like a billionaire's tax in which the rich simply get up and leave the state for a location with a better tax regime. If there's no cap and higher perceived revenues in another state or country, then why not simply bring your capital and invest in generation there? And here's another challenge. PJM's recently issued 70-page white paper entitled Powering Reliability Through Market Design explicitly notes that the administratively estimated cone, upon which this 555 price formula is based, is significantly below empirically observed prices for new turbines. And PJM notes in that paper that a recent report of actual projects under development show combined cycle prices, for example, as much as doubling over the 26-27 up to 2030-31 delivery years. In large part, that's because the tsunami of rapidly growing forecasted data center demand has simply overwhelmed global supply chains that can't keep up. Since the reliability backstop procurement projects will come online around in 28-29, the RBP prices may not yield many suppliers willing to offer capacity. With GE Vernova and other manufacturers reporting turbines in an oversold situation through 2030 and beyond, there may be no magic bullet here, at least not at those capped prices. But this exercise will provide a very useful real-world example of what's out there at what price. And it will send a very strong signal to PJM ratepayers as to what capacity prices may look like in the years after the current $325 per megawatt day cap expires, if indeed there is a future capacity market at all. One thing that PJM white paper sets out for consideration is a Texas-style approach under which there is no capacity market, where energy prices send the signals and they're allowed to soar. The PJM board will issue a letter to its members with the details of this final reliability backstop plan before filing the proposal at FERC. This stuff gets more complex with each passing day as market operators and regulators put one more detail-laden patch on top of the next, which makes me wonder why on earth anybody continues to call these markets deregulated. They are, in fact, more complex and regulated than ever before. Well, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.